Welcome to Catholic Connection with Teresa Tomeo, keeping you connected to your faith and your world. Teresa tackles the issues of faith and culture, the pro-life message, and media awareness. And now, here's Teresa Tomeo.
And it's a Thursday. It's September 25th, 2025. Great to be back with you here on EWTN's Catholic Connection as we're getting close to winding down the week. Hope your day is going well. So much to talk about, so little time. The 2 hours seem to fly by so quickly. Of course, it's a Thursday, and so we are going to be connecting culturally with our dear friend, Father Mitch Pacwa from EWTN for our cultural connections. So many issues right now, and I'm wondering if Father, we go back and forth and never seem to make up our mind until the morning of the show because there's always breaking news and different stories developing. So last we discussed was a little bit more on the fallout from the Charlie Kirk shootings. And what's interesting right now, there's all this new language that's coming out regarding ICE. And the same thing that they did against Charlie and calling him previously before the horrible assassination just over 2 weeks ago at a Utah college campus, they labeled him, they called him a bigot, they called him a homophobe. He had transphobia, he was evil, he was against women and everything else under the sun. And then, of course, we see what happened. Now, the same on the left is happening with ICE. And we had that horrible situation with the shooting with ICE. Thank God there were actually 2 people killed, including the gunman who killed himself. But none of the ICE officers were hurt or killed. So, but this is happening more and more, and the language has a lot to do with it. And Vice President Vance, Senator Ted Cruz, and many others are speaking out about it. But here we go again. Just 2 weeks after the shooting of Charlie Kirk, you think some people could tone it down? No, it just continues. So we'll discuss that with Father Mitch. And then wrapping up the first hour of the program with Michele Sagarino. And she's the president of Cross Catholic Outreach. And believe it or not, it's time for the Box of Joy initiative. Now, this is something that can make you feel really good because what you're doing is donating to a wonderful cause to help kids in many of these war-torn areas. Sometimes when we look out on the world and we see so many problems, we think, okay, I can't make a difference. It's just not going to happen. The problem is too big. This is too large. This is way out of my league. But it's not out of God's league. And with your yes in doing something so small, it can make such a big difference. And this is a great organization. And they're very clear about their money, so you don't have to worry about any shenanigans going on, of course. And they're very transparent, and it goes directly to the people in need. So we'll talk more about that with Michele. That is coming up at the end of the first hour of the program. Do want to say a big thank you to my little sis, Vanessa Den Hagarmo, who's going to be filling in for me tomorrow. Deacon Dom and I have an event that we have to attend down in southern Italy. And so, God willing, we'll be back Sunday evening, back on the air at Monday. And then next week, actually a week from today, Kelly Walquist and I will begin our Wine and Shrine. It's our 10th anniversary celebration of our pilgrimage. We began the pilgrimages with this beautiful ministry out of Minnesota 10 years ago. And I'll be sitting down with Kelly and taping an interview with her, as well as with our spiritual director, Father Klockman from St. Paul, Minneapolis, and the lovely ladies that'll be joining us. We're sold out for this trip, and it's going to be beautiful. We're starting in Rome. We are going up to Firenze, Florence, visiting St. Catherine, and then heading over to a beautiful area of northern Italy along Lake Garda, and staying in the town of Desenzano, visiting Sirmione, which is magical. My favorite part of that area, though, is this incredible shrine, and it's on the cover of my EWTN book, Italy, Shrines and Wonders, Madonna della Corona. It is this phenomenal Marian shrine built into and on top of a mountain. It is just the most amazing thing you'll ever see. And if you want to get a look at it, just go and look at the cover of my book and you'll get the impression of it. It's just amazing. So we'll be going there before we wrap up and see St. Anthony in Padua, and then go over to Venice, before we wrap up our trip. So that is our pilgrimage next week, and that starts on Thursday, and Vanessa and Sherry Brownrigg will be filling in for most of the time when I'm traveling with the ladies. It is a Thursday. It is 4 minutes past the hour. Let's check the forecast. A lot of rain out there. The National Weather Service is saying heavy rain is returning to the southwest with potential Atlantic tropical systems interacting. So not exactly good weather. Heavy to excessive rainfall, monsoon-like thunderstorms as well that could bring isolated flash and urban flooding into the desert southwest into this weekend, Sunday as a matter of fact. A tropical wave continues to bring heavy rainfall to Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands. There's even a warning there for some serious floods. and the close proximity of Tropical Storm Umberto could lead to interaction between the two, but details of their track and intensity forecasts remain uncertain. But we'll bring you up to date if anything changes with those storms and the heavy rain in those areas that could be affected. Once again, it is a Thursday morning. We appreciate your listenership here at EWTN on a Thursday and every day. It's September 25th already, 2025. Let's see what's happening in the news here on EWTN. Following up on this story that was published in Catholic News Agency and the Register this week, and also discussed on Catholic Connection yesterday with our friend Bill Donahue from the Catholic League, opposition is mounting against Chicago Cardinal Blaise Cupich's decision to honor U.S. Senator Dick Durbin from Illinois, a Democrat, with a Lifelong Achievement Award for his work surrounding immigration policy, despite his long pro-abortion voting record. CNA reporting, following Bishop Thomas Piprocki of Springfield, Illinois' denunciation of that decision, many other bishops have followed suit in speaking out against the upcoming ceremony, which is scheduled to take place in November. In addition to the Bishop of Springfield, Archbishop Cordileone of San Francisco, Bishop Ricken of Green Bay, Bishop Conley of Lincoln, Nebraska, along with several pro-life leaders, including Lala Rose of Live Action and Kristen Hawkins of Students for Life, are also speaking out against the honoring of Durbin. As a matter of fact, Bishop Connolly saying in a post on X, the senator's public record has been consistently pro-abortion, and he has opposed any protections or safeguards for unborn children in the womb, even to the point of rejecting legislation to protect children who survive failed abortions. He also said that goes against the fundamental moral principles of the Catholic Church, and seems to me there is still time to reconsider this decision. As we mentioned at the top of the hour, at least one person is dead and two others hurt when a shooter opened fire at the Dallas ICE facility. Here's a Dallas police chief who gave details about the shooting.
We later learned that we had 4 individuals that were shot, 2 of them deceased, including the shooter. The DPD was able to locate the shooter, who was deceased.
The shooter was found at a nearby apartment building. The FBI is investigating the shooting as an act of targeted violence. Republican Texas Senator Ted Cruz calling for an end to political violence and no or border patrols in the state. The Department of Homeland Security says it is going to immediately ramp up security nationwide. Mark Mayfield, of course, has a little bit more on this situation, with one detainee being dead and 2 others hurt after that shooting.
Vice President J.D. Vance said the rhetoric is out of control.
When the left-wing media lies about what they're doing, when they lie about who they're arresting, when they lie about the actual job of law enforcement, what they're doing is encouraging crazy people to go and commit violence.
The shooter has reportedly been identified as 29-year-old Joshua John. He was found dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound at a nearby apartment building. FBI Director Kash Patel posted a picture on X of shell casings engraved with the phrase anti-ICE that were found at the scene. No ICE agents were injured in the shooting. I'm Mark Mayfield.
A new streaming series about domestic terrorism is being postponed following the Charlie Kirk killing. The new thriller series, The Savant, follows an undercover investigator played by Jessica Chastain who infiltrates an online hate group after a mass shooting. The first 2 episodes were set to air this Friday on Apple TV+. On Tuesday, the streamer releasing a statement saying after careful consideration, they decided to postpone the show and look forward to releasing the series at a future date. They didn't give an exact reason for that postponement. It comes after political activist Charlie Kirk was killed earlier this month while speaking on a college campus in Utah. President Trump saying he was a victim of sabotage during his visit to the UN General Assembly. The president slamming the organization in a post on Truth Social Wednesday, saying during his visit both the escalator and his teleprompter weren't working. The UN is rejecting the claims by asserting it was a videographer from the U.S. delegation who may have inadvertently caused a safety feature to activate on the escalator, and added the White House operated its own teleprompter during the meeting. Trump also said the sound wasn't working in the auditorium where he delivered the speech and is demanding an immediate investigation into the incidents. Jim Roop tells us federal prosecutors are nearing a decision on whether to bring possible perjury charges against former FBI Director James Comey.
The probe's examining whether Comey made false statements during his September 2020 testimony to Congress on his handling of the investigation into Russia allegedly meddling in the 2016 presidential election. Prosecutors would generally only have 5 years to the day to bring a charge, and according to people familiar with the investigation, a legal deadline is expiring Tuesday. Comey has maintained his innocence, and if a federal grand jury approves the case, it would mark one of the highest profile indictments of a political figure. I'm Jim Roop.
A Florida school is accused of promoting witchcraft. That's what the Liberty Council said this week in a letter it sent to Orange County Public Schools. The Christian organization sent a letter in response to a video series called Witchy Wednesday that first aired at an unidentified public high school some 2 weeks ago. According to the letter, Witchy Wednesday offers students religious instructions on spells, magic, moon worship, and other witchcraft rituals. Liberty Council warning the district the instruction must be voluntary, and it's illegal to deny Christian students a similar chance to share their beliefs. Now, as a result of Liberty Council's demand, there's an update to that story. Yesterday, the Orange County Public Schools directing West Orange High School to cease its weekly Witchy Wednesday video series that aired school-wide. The series, which again was aired during midweek morning announcements, was produced by students providing religious instruction on spells and, again, magic, moon worship, and other witchcraft rituals. District 49 school board member in Colorado Springs voting last night to restrict student access to restrooms and locker rooms based on biological sex. Here's board vice president Jamelyn Diavato, who shared concerns about the prospect of a biological male sharing a restroom with girls.
It's important that we have sex-segregated bathrooms so that our girls have private spaces without having someone who is biologically a man in their bathroom.
The resolution passing 322 and applies to multi-user bathrooms, locker rooms, showers, and similar facilities. It covers students, staff, and visitors during school hours, extracurriculars, and school-sponsored events. Schools say, though, they will still provide single-user facilities for those who need them. As for the race for New York City mayor heats up, one candidate is accusing another of offering bribes. Republican Curtis Sliwa making the claim that Andrew Cuomo's campaign has offered him money to drop out of the race.
That's the way they talk. Come on, Curtis. Everybody has a price. Curtis Sliwa doesn't have a price.
Cuomo's team denying the accusation, calling Sliwa a liar. Most polls have Cuomo running second and Sliwa third behind the front-runner Zohran Mamdani. And the family of a man killed in a mid-air collision earlier this year near Washington, D.C. is suing the airlines involved and the federal government. Attorney for the family, Bob Clifford, saying they're seeking accountability. The American Airlines flight colliding with an Army Black Hawk helicopter over the Potomac River, killing 67 people back in January. Rachel Crafton's husband, Casey, was on the passenger plane, and she has filed a wrongful death and negligence lawsuit. Crafton suing American Airlines and regional jet operator PSA Airlines. It states the airline should have known the flight was heading into one of the busiest airspaces in the U.S. and should have also been aware of the risks. It is a Thursday morning, 13 minutes past the hour. Hope it's going well for you on this September 25th. It is about to get even better because our dear friend and amazing priest and staffer here at EWTN, well known for his great work on air and behind the scenes, of course, the one, the only, Father Mitch Pacwa for our Cultural Connections. Stay tuned. Great to be with you on a Thursday morning. Father Mitch Pacwa joins us at this time for our Cultural Connections. Before we get to that briefly, two of our great EWTN partners need to hear from you, and they need to hear from you very soon. How about in the next week? Iowa Catholic Radio with 10 stations in Iowa will be kicking off, of course, its fundraiser. So please keep that in mind if you're in that area. Their fall fundraiser will take place on Tuesday. And similarly, Catholic Community Media, The Cross, with serving 4 stations in Baton Rouge and New Orleans. So please support your local Catholic radio station because we work together to provide you great Catholic Radio 24/7. And a part of that great Catholic Radio is our friend, Father Mitch Pacwa, who joins us. Father, we have not spoken, obviously, since last week and since the very powerful memorial for Charlie Kirk on Sunday. I'm sure you watched. It was over the top. Every speaker was great, especially Erica Kirk.
Yeah, it was quite remarkable to see first of all, what you would expect, namely the people that worked with Charlie Kirk, the people at Turning Point USA. You'd expect that, but what was in some ways more remarkable was the presence of so many political leaders. And frankly, I really wish that more folks from the progressive side, the more liberal side of politics, had been there and had asked to speak. Mm-hmm. I think that would have been a positive step. I missed that. So because I certainly didn't want to see this as a political event only of the conservative people, but something that Charlie himself did, which was to bring people together from both sides. And I missed that, but
it's a great point.
It was really, and that still would not mean that they agree with Charlie Kirk or me or you or anybody else. It's just, let's make that step to against the kind of violence that has been going on in politics, and that didn't happen. That's too bad. But I was impressed with the number of people from the political world who were there. And they, for the most part, they were not talking about politics. They were talking about Christ. They were talking about the need for spiritual renewal. And the other thing that was remarkable was the audience. But nothing could top what Erica had done. Mm-hmm. Her courage in being there in an obviously difficult situation and doing what because of Christ. And when she said that, this is because of Christ, I'm sure that emotionally this went against her. And you could tell that combination of frustration and anger, that her husband is dead, the father of her children is gone, and at the same time, not a feeling, but a decision to forgive. I'm sure her feelings will go back and forth. Because, we're emotional animals, and our feelings change back and forth at times. But our decisions are what we choose. And she chose the Christian response of Christ on the cross. Father, forgive them, they know not what they do. And that she specifically, not just as a general principle, but specifically forgave the young man that killed, allegedly, her husband. And so this is something that is a very, very important moment. The sad thing is you still have an ugliness, and I don't mean superficially ugly. I mean deeply hideous, where some people were still mocking her and rejecting her and her message, and just not showing a scintilla of human decency to respect a grieving widow. And to see there weren't many, I don't think, but there were some, because some people are so caught up in a false notion of human rights that they can't even allow the human decency of accepting as profound a statement as Erica Kirk made in regard to forgiving her husband's killer to be acceptable to them. It's remarkable. The other thing that we have to deal with is because folks have false notions of human rights, and they insist that they have the right to whatever it is they want to do and want to feel. This is one of those early modern notions that goes back to Thomas Hobbes and his book Leviathan. That gives them a justification to be cruel and reject other people's rights. And we see, for instance, an ongoing process where the rejection and the name calling, the false name calling, the hyperbole of saying that various law enforcement agents are Nazis and stuff. This is particularly problematic in that, say, in the case of the ICE agents who were, they had the shooting in Dallas at the ICE Detention Center. This is something where they are doing what the executive part of the government does, enforcing law that is made by Congress. And, I suspect you remember some of this. Back in the 80s, the Congress called for the president to decree an amnesty to illegal immigrants. And he did, but they promised that they would work on immigration reform. And for the last 40 years, we've heard our immigration system is broken. And I cannot help but call them fools. If you know something is broken and you are the people in charge of fixing it, to just continue on this path indicate of leaving the broken machine there when you're the ones who have the tools in Congress to fix the legislation, and then you denigrate the people who enforce the laws that you either made, if they were old enough, there's some of them that are, or have neglected to fix. You denigrate them for enforcing your laws.
Right, exactly. Let's talk more about this, Father Ham. We have to take a break.
So we'll violence.
Yeah, we'll continue on the other side. Don't want you to get cut off. Appreciate it. Father Mitch Pacwa, our Cultural Connections, taking a look at the continued fallout, both on the good side and the not so great side, regarding the shooting of Charlie Kirk just over 2 weeks ago. We'll be right back. Texas Republican Senator Ted Cruz is appealing for an end to political violence following a deadly shooting at an ICE processing facility in Dallas. 2 people, as you heard us report in the news earlier, including the shooter, are dead. According to authorities, the FBI is investigating the attack as an act of targeted violence. Authorities also say that anti-ICE casings were found at the scene. Senator Cruz appealing for an end to rhetoric demonizing ICE. He said this needs to stop. This has very real consequences, but your political opponents are not Nazis. We need to work together without demonizing each other, without attacking each other. And Father, they are using words, the left, to disagree with ICE. They are using words such as Gestapo. And I was telling you during the break, this is exactly what the left do. They get their talking points. They get together and they repeat the same message over and over and over again. There was a clip, a montage, as you're saying, the business, with several sound bites edited together of Newsom on various talk shows using the same language as Tim Walz from Minnesota and other politicians using phrases such as Gestapo. That word was the same word repeated. They also talked about unmarked vans. They talked about the agents wearing masks. Now, as if unmarked vans are something new that police use. I mean, how else are they going to track these people down? When they're going to come down blazing the streets with the sirens and everything else and the lights? Makes no sense. But this language of calling them Gestapo, 2 weeks after Charlie Kirk was assassinated, basically for the same thing because of all the things that were said about him that were untrue.
Yep. Well, this is the kind of thing where, it's not just a talking point that is being given by their political advisors. This is something that endangers other people's lives. And in this case, it was the detainees that got killed. Because, I would admit this. A number of the people who are part of such action, who the perpetrators, may not be all that balanced emotionally. They may, or as we say here in Alabama, their cornbread may not be cooked all the way through. Mm-hmm. But you are putting them in this danger by these statements that inflame people. Now, of course, you want such statements are meant to be rhetorical rallies for their side and to motivate people to be against this. But I heard Senator Cruz say they don't call you Nazis because they believe you're Nazis. They call you Nazis so they can kill you. Mm-hmm. And because what it does is it makes you into this vicious enemy of the past. Most of them don't believe in the devil, so they won't call them demons, but they'll call them something they dislike. And in that process, they dehumanize. That's the goal. It's just the same
Absolutely.
as dehumanizing somebody because their race might make, in the old racist days, people would use race statements to undercut people's humanity. They're just apes or something. And then you can harm them. You could do this. That's what the Nazis did to the Jews and the Gypsies. They said they're subhuman. And it's what Darwin said about Africans. They're a species in between the ape and the human. Well, you dehumanize black folks from, African descent people. You dehumanize Jews, you dehumanize Gypsies, and then you can kill them. And people, have an instinct to know that you can't kill a fellow human. They may not believe in the Ten Commandments, but they still have that instinct. And so if you dehumanize somebody, then, okay, it's okay to kill them. Well, this is exactly what is going on by calling them Nazis and fascists. Most people don't even know what the fasces were that lies behind the fascist label. They don't know who the different fascists were. They know Hitler and Mussolini. They don't know the others. And in the face of the ignorance that we have, people can dehumanize others and then attack them. Now, this is something that is precisely why it would be a good idea to look at Turning Point USA, and because they and Charlie Kirk's mission and the mission of that organization, and it should be the mission of every school, sought to get solid information that was true rather than rhetoric that appealed to emotions, because emotions push people to do foolishness. And instead, we should become extremely well informed. I've just been reading a little bit about Father James Shaw, a Jesuit that taught at Georgetown and in Rome. If you want some clear thinking about politics and religion, you want to read Father Shaw. If you want to understand our founders, read what the founders wrote. Find good writers who are going to teach clearly and be able to engage the culture in conversation. That's the mission that we have to deal with, and it's something that is frankly missing, in particular on the side of the left, because their difficulty, and I'm trying to give them positive advice. What I hear from the progressive side of our culture is clarity about what they don't want, but they are completely confused in what they say in public about what they do want. This is a standard problem in the culture. People are more clear about what they don't want than they are about what they do want. And what we want is to have that combination of Jerusalem, Athens, and Rome. In other words, we want what is given to us in God's revelation and how we think it through, the way that you see with the history of philosophy. That's where Athens comes in. That symbolizes solid, clear thinking, especially with Aristotle. Ironically, Plato advocated for dictatorship, but Aristotle talked about human freedom. And to understand Rome, that is the mission of the Catholic Church, to faithfully pass on the teachings of Christ with using the philosophy and thought as well as revelation. This ought to be our goal, and being able to be smarter than our opponents rather than angrier than they is our purpose.
Amen. Well said, Father. Thank you so much. Father Mitch Pacwa on Thursdays with our Cultural Connections. We'll be right back. .38 past the hour. It is a Thursday morning, September 25th. Now, we know it's only the end of September. See that in my Freudian slip, thinking about Christmas way ahead of time. But this is an important initiative, the BACA initiative, by our friends at Cross Catholic Outreach. And if you want to make a little child in need really happy this Christmas and help them celebrate the birth of our Lord, this is a great thing to do. And especially when we look at all the problems in the world, all the fighting, all the wars, all the violence, sometimes we just say, okay, there's nothing I can do except pray. Obviously, we have to pray, and we constantly have to pray and call on the Lord for peace, as Pope Leo has been reminding us very consistently, especially the last few weeks. But nobody knows better than our friend Michele Sagarino on how these boxes of joy can make such a difference in the lives of so many young people. Michele is the president of Cross Catholic Outreach. That time already, my dear. Good morning. Thanks for joining us again.
Good morning, Teresa. Thank you for having us. Thank you for being an ambassador for Box of Joy and always supporting it. It is a little bit over 90 days we've got before Christmas. So it is that time of year again, right? We're just asking parishes and schools and church groups to sign up for the Box of Joy program again in their parish or school, so we can get all their boxes out to them. It's not too late. October 17th is our sign up.
So for people who are not familiar with the Box of Joy initiative, take us back to when it began and in the areas You target different areas each season, I understand. So where are the boxes going this year?
Good question. This year, there's 8 different countries: Haiti,
Wow.
Dominican Republic, Peru is a new one, Teresa, since last year, Guatemala, Malawi, El Salvador, Honduras, Grenada. I know you're very familiar, but at Cross Catholic Outreach, we've worked in over 90 countries helping the poorest of the poor. So we are a Catholic relief and development ministry, and we're working to provide water wells, which you always help share with your listeners about our water programs, housing, food, education. But as we were traveling and seeing all these countries and visiting areas where the poorest of the poor live with such great faith, we could see that children really don't receive gifts. Their homes don't have toys in them. They're often playing with a wrapped ball of trash bags for a soccer ball, making it into a soccer ball. So we thought, let's bring a little joy at Christmas time. And we started 2014 with 3,000 boxes. And I think you even helped us early on. And now we are at a total of 781,000 Box of Joy gift boxes. Isn't that amazing? So we're hoping to hit over a million if the listeners sign up.
I was going to say, yeah. Wow. How do you decide the countries? Because I'm sure there's so many areas that are in need.
There are so many areas that are in need. In our broader base of what we do with development work, with the housing and water and education, we also have a very large part of our ministry that ships. We ship material aid like food. Food insecurity is so big, and housing, roofs for houses. And so because of that, certain countries, we have established a really great way to be able to get material aid in, like these boxes of joy, and ensure that they go to the right places, right? We have partners there already, and we have trust, and we've worked with them for a long time. So that's one of the ways that we determine where will be the next area that we will enter into. And as you know, we work alongside priests and sisters and bishops, and as they receive these beautiful gift boxes packed in the United States for children, they're sharing the gospel with groups of children before they pass out these great gifts. It's a wonderful program.
Talking with Michele Sagarino, the president of Cross Catholic Outreach. Time again to get involved in the Box of Joy initiative for Christmas. I wanted to say, go back to a comment you made early on. You said these are people that are extremely poor and in need. Many don't have running water, and yet they have a great faith. That's one point. And then the other point was that these boxes are put together in the United States, which is a beautiful thing. So let's start with the faith. How do you account, do you think, because you've been to many of these places, these people who have so little can be so joyful and full of faith? What do you think?
I think that our church is so alive in these communities that the community, the children, the families, they may not have a lot of material aid, but the sense of community that the church provides, I think, draws them in. And I just see a faith that is so alive. In Guatemala, we have a local church in California, the American Martyrs, who helps to build small chapels. In Guatemala, I had this mom say to me, we weren't a community. Teresa, they weren't a community until this church was built. It gathered us together. And they really, within the diocese, the Caritas and the diocese, the outreach to build faith is something we could replicate here. Home groups in one of the dioceses in Guatemala, there's 1,200 home groups in one diocese.
Wow.
So, it's I think that we do tend to draw closer to the Lord through trials, right? And but I also think that the church has realized how much the community needs this, and needs it socially, spiritually as well, right? That community. Absolutely. And when you go into a church, it is packed. It is packed. And when we, the sign up for Box of Joy, of course, is for groups is October 17th. But when I've gone into the countries and watched this distribution, the excitement, the way the children know each other, it's beautiful. It's just so beautiful to watch. So I feel filled when I leave visiting these areas. People are just so loving and want to connect with you about our Lord.
Before the next question regarding who fills the boxes, how do they get information if people are listening, if they want their parish to be involved?
We do. October 17th, it's not too late to sign up, and we do everything, as you know. If you go on to boxofjoy.org, you will see group sign up. You click that. You can get your parish, your school, your Knights of Columbus group, your NCCW group to be involved. You tell us approximately how many boxes you want us to ship. We ship the boxes and posters and brochures to you so that you can pass them out throughout your parish or your group. And then you give them a date that the boxes come back. We ask that you put $9 in for shipping of the box. And then at the end of this month, at the end of October, October 25th through November 2nd, we will send trucks to pick up those boxes. You can imagine all these Christmas gifts coming across the United States, and we bring them to our screening center, and we put a rosary and a story of Jesus in it, and make sure there's no chocolate, there's no water, things like that would ruin the boxes. And off they go across the seas to bless children.
Wow.
It's easy to get involved.
Who puts the items in the boxes, Michele, and what items are acceptable for the boxes? What do you want in those boxes? You mentioned there's a message about Christmas and Jesus and the Rosary, which is awesome. But what about the items that the children will get in the Box of Joy?
So when you pass out the boxes to your parish or your group, there's going to be a gift idea sheet and also online. You're asking them to fill it up with toys, with cars and trucks and balloons and puzzles and pencils. I mean, I've been in schools where one pencil for the whole classroom, one pencil. Wow. Socks are treasured by these children, water bottles. And so the parents and oftentimes will go to the dollar store with their grandchild, with their child, and begin to fill it up. Maybe pick the age, which you can select, 2 to 4, 5 to 9, 10 to 14. Oftentimes the children want to pick a child their age, and they fill that up. And oh my gosh, so many children put beautiful notes inside to share with the children in the developing countries.
So what's so amazing about this, and by the way, again, if you're just joining us, we're talking with Michele Sagarino, president of Cross Catholic Outreach, about the annual Box of Joy initiative. And it's still time. There's still time to get involved. You can go to boxofjoy.org. What you're describing is not something just on the receiving end, but those who are putting those boxes together. What that must do is they wonder about the child who will be receiving it from whatever country. And I know that there are groups that get together and do this, in, let's say, at a group setting, maybe at a church. But think about the joy, no pun intended, well, I guess pun intended, of putting together these boxes as a group or even as a family.
It really does impact the children. I've been in schools where they've done it all together, like you said. One classroom brings socks, one classroom brings pencils, and they do it all together. And it does really impact. Really, this is another reason why we started this program. One, children have never experienced a Christmas gift. To bring the joy of Jesus at Christmas in a small little gift is beautiful. But two, to also impart in our families and our children the act of service. And for them to know what that feels like and to be able to connect with somebody through their love of Christ, to connect with somebody they don't even know, and to see what it has done throughout children and families here in the United States. Many parishes say to us, we're looking for a family activity. Families want things that they can come together around. This is a great tradition to start, right, for Christmas, a new tradition with your family. So it's
yeah, and I also think, though, too, Michele, because you think about how we have so much in America, we're so blessed, and so many toys at Christmas, and there are many children obviously struggling in our country here as well. But for the most of us, the kids are pretty blessed in getting a lot of toys. I know with my grandnieces, I just say, oh my goodness, how many more toys do they actually need? And then when the kids are helping out and putting together the box, looking down at that box and thinking, this is most likely going to be the only Christmas gift this child for whom I'm wrapping this box, filling up this box, and think about all the gifts that they know they're going to have under the tree. So I'm hoping that there's a lot of gratitude, a lot of humility. There's all kinds of stories that must be coming out of this initiative.
Oh, it's a great teaching moment. And we do see hearts really opened. You know, as we bring these Box of Joy gifts across the United States to Miami to the screening center, we have over 3,000 volunteers that participate.
Wow.
And I've seen whole football teams from Ave Maria. I've seen, music classes, all different age of kids, children, helping us to screen the boxes. And as we show those videos of where these boxes are going, I've seen them cry, like the big football players, because it's so touching to know that you can change someone's life. You can bring joy. And that joy isn't just material. It's coming through the church, right? Maybe the first gift they've ever received is because of the church, because of our love for them. So it impacts them. Our mission statement is to mobilize the global Catholic Church to transform the poor and their communities for the glory of Jesus Christ. Mobilizing, that's what I see this initiative doing. Mobilized over 1,161 groups, Catholic groups last year, to just come together and help others in service. It's been a wonderful journey, to watch on both sides.
Wow. And it continues. Michele, thank you so much. Michele Sagarino, president of Cross Catholic Outreach, talking about the Box of Joy initiative, making a difference on both ends for those who are receiving these wonderful boxes of joy, but also those who are involved in gathering the items, putting them together, and making it a family and a parish event. And they can go to boxofjoy.org for more information, boxofjoy.org. Thanks, Michele, so much. Great to talk to you again.
Thank you, Teresa. Thank you.
And an
God
early
bless.
Buon Natale. Merry Christmas to you. I know this is going to be a great one because of all the good you're doing. Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
And we'll be right back to let you know what's coming up in hour number 2 of Catholic Connection on EWTN's Radio Extra. Stay tuned. What I really like about the Box of Joy initiative, as you heard Michele and I speaking earlier, is that those who are donating for the boxes are involved in putting those boxes together. And imagine all the lessons you can have for your family, for your kids, for your grandchildren, and for your schools and parishes as you're putting those boxes together for children in need and families in need around the world. So again, boxofjoyinitiative.org. Coming up in hour number 2 on a Thursday, September 25th, 2025, we are going to pull up a chair and talk, as it says on his website, with Dr. Dwight, or Father, I should say, just made him a doctor. I don't know if he has a PhD, but he does now. I just called him a doctor. Oh, well. Father Dwight Longenecker, Catholic priest, author, and speaker. He's a convert to Catholicism, and he has a wonderful, very active parish. He's actually in studio with us in Irondale, Alabama, because he is going to be on Women of Grace next month. He's taping several episodes with the beautiful and lovely Jeanette Williams, of course. Great program. You have to watch Women of Grace. It's awesome. And check out her ministry as well. But she's going to be talking to Father primarily about the power of the Rosary. He does have a book on the Rosary. He also has a book on his very interesting journey, and we'll talk to him about a number of issues and how things are going at his parish down in North Carolina, and much more with Father Longenecker. Now, in the 2 cent segment, I found, or I should say my wonderful producer Richard found them for me, some very strong clips of Ted Cruz and our Vice President, J.D. Vance, talking about the rhetoric that has got to stop and die down. But as Father Mitch said, the left just doesn't seem willing to do this, but we'll explore the fallout from that just over 2 weeks after the assassination of debater and pro-life leader, conservative leader, Charlie Kirk. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Catholic Connection with Teresa Tomeo, keeping you connected to your faith and your world. Teresa tackles the issues of faith and culture, the pro-life message, and media awareness. And now, here's Teresa Tomeo.
For hour number 2 of Catholic Connection on Thursday, September 25th, 2025, here on EWTN's Radio Extra channel. It is a great day across EWTN land. Thank you for listening. Appreciate you following us into the second hour here on EWTN Radio Extra. And just a little reminder, as I mentioned in the first hour of the program, Vanessa Denhagarmo will be sitting in for me tomorrow as Deacon Dom and I are traveling down to southern Italy, the Abruzzo region, for an event there. We'll be back, God willing, Sunday night, and I'll be back with you on the air next week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then V is filling in for me on Friday Thursday and Friday, because that's when we begin our Wine and Shrine pilgrimage. Kelly Walquist and I. Kelly is the foundress of WINE, which is an acronym for Women in the New Evangelization. And the name of the organization and the name of our pilgrimage, we have big signs on our bus that says Wine and Shrine Pilgrimage. It gets so much attention from people who are passing our bus. It's a great talking point and a great launching point to talk about pilgrimage in the Catholic faith. Now, again, WINE is an acronym, Women in the New Evangelization. You can find the beautiful ministry, CatholicVineyard.com. And this is going to be our 10th pilgrimage, our women's pilgrimage for Wine and Shrine. And this one, too, is sold out. So we start in Roma, and then we go up to Florence, and then we are going to visit Santa Caterina in Siena. And then we're heading over to Lake Garda for the Madonna della Corona Shrine and Ceramione, which is a beautiful waterfront town there. So it'll be a combination of culture and Catholicism, as always, because the two go together hand in hand. We'll stop in Padua for St. Anthony and then head to Venice to wrap up our trip there. So I'll be in touch, and we'll be filing reports on Facebook and calling in with Vanessa Denhagarmo and Sherry Brownberg, who'll be filling in for me. It doesn't start until next week, but I'm just kind of giving you a preview because Vanessa will be on with me tomorrow. And then, as I said, next week as well, Thursday and Friday. We'll talk more in the coming days. As far as our program today is concerned, I want to dive into a little bit more deeply what Father Mitch was talking about in our Cultural Connection. On Thursdays, he joins us at 9:15 Eastern for 2 segments on our Cultural Connections, and he was talking about the rhetoric out there right now in light of what happened with the ICE situation down in Dallas. And so we're going to have 2 clips that my fab producer Richard pulled for me, one from Senator Cruz, the other from our vice president, saying, basta with the rhetoric. We've got to tone it down, dial it down, eliminate some of these phrases referring to people in office who are conservative activists such as Charlie Kirk, or who are law enforcement, those serving our country and trying to enforce the laws, as evil, as Nazis, as Gestapos. Those are the words that the left has been using toward ICE agents. And then here we have another shooting at an ICE facility, this time in Dallas. What do they expect? And so why can't they just tone it down? And this is just over 2 weeks after the death of Charlie Kirk. So we'll discuss. So that is the show for today on a Thursday morning, the second hour on EWTN's Radio Extra. Here's a look at the weather. The National Weather Service is saying heavy to excessive rainfall from monsoon thunderstorms that could bring isolated flash and urban flooding to the desert southwest into Sunday. The tropical wave continues to bring heavy rainfall also to Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands. And the close proximity of Tropical Storm Umberto could lead to interaction between the 2 developments, but details of their track and intensity forecast to remain uncertain at this point, but we'll be watching that for you. It is a Thursday morning. It's September 25th, 2025. We appreciate your listenership here on EWTN and this channel, EWTN's Radio Extra. Let's get started with the news on a Thursday morning, September 25th. Opposition mounting against Chicago's Cardinal Blaise Cupich decision to honor U.S. Senator Richard Durbin of Illinois, a Democrat, with a Lifetime Achievement Award for his work surrounding immigration policies despite his long pro-abortion voting record. Following Bishop Thomas Paprocki of Springfield, Illinois' denunciation of the decision, additional bishops have followed suit in speaking out, as Catholic News Agency explains in a story today, against the upcoming ceremony honoring Durbin, which is set to take place in November. Now, in addition to the Bishop of Springfield, Bishop Paprocki, Archbishop Corleone of San Francisco, Bishop Ricken of Green Bay, Bishop Conley of Lincoln, Nebraska, along with several pro-life leaders, including Lila Rose of Live Action and Kristen Hawkins of Students for Life America, are speaking out against honoring Durbin. Bishop Conley saying in a post on X, the senator's public record has been consistently pro-abortion, and he has opposed any protections or safeguards for unborn children in the womb, even to the point of rejecting legislation to protect children who survive failed abortions. He also said that goes against the fundamental moral principles of the church. It seems to me there is still time to reconsider this decision. In other news, at least one person is dead, 2 others hurt when a shooter opened fire on a Dallas ICE facility. Here's the Dallas police chief giving details about the shooting.
We later learned that we had 4 individuals that were shot, 2 of them deceased, including the shooter. The DPD was able to locate the shooter, who was deceased.
He was found at a nearby apartment building. The FBI investigating the shooting as an act of targeted violence. Republican Texas Senator Ted Cruz calling for an end to political violence and noted this was the 3rd shooting targeting ICE or Border Patrol in the state of Texas. Meanwhile, the Department of Homeland Security says it's going to immediately ramp up security nationwide. And we are learning about more details from this shooting at the ICE Detention Center in Dallas. Mark Mayfield tells us some heavyweights are weighing in politically on how the rhetoric has got to be toned down.
Vice President J.D. Vance said the rhetoric is out of control.
When the left-wing media lies about what they're doing, when they lie about who they're arresting, when they lie about the actual job of law enforcement, what they're doing is encouraging crazy people to go and commit violence.
The shooter has reportedly been identified as 29-year-old Joshua John. He was found dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound at a nearby apartment building. FBI Director Kash Patel posted a picture on X of shell casings engraved with the phrase anti-ICE that were found at the scene. No ICE agents were injured in the shooting. I'm Mark Mayfield.
And a new streaming series about domestic terrorism is being postponed following the shooting of Charlie Kirk and his killing 2 weeks ago. The new thriller series, The Savant, follows an undercover investigator played by Jessica Chastain who infiltrates an online hate group after a mass shooting. The first 2 episodes were set to drop this Friday on Apple TV+. Earlier this week on Tuesday, the streamer released a statement saying after careful consideration, they decided to postpone the series and look forward to releasing it at a future date. They did not give an exact reason for the postponement, but it does come after a political activist, Charlie Kirk, was killed earlier this month while speaking on a college campus in Utah. President Trump says he was a victim of sabotage during his visit to the United Nations General Assembly. The president slamming the organization in a post on Truth Social yesterday, saying during his visit, both the escalator and his teleprompter were not working. The UN is rejecting the claims by inserting it was a videographer from a U.S. delegation who may have inadvertently caused a safety feature to activate on the escalator, and added the White House operated its own teleprompter during the meeting. Trump also said the sound wasn't working properly in the auditorium where he delivered his speech and is demanding an immediate investigation into the incidents. Jim Roop tells us federal prosecutors are nearing a decision on whether to bring possible perjury charges against former FBI Director James Comey.
The probe's examining whether Comey made false statements during his September 2020 testimony to Congress on his handling of the investigation into Russia allegedly meddling in the 2016 presidential election. Prosecutors would generally only have 5 years to the day to bring a charge, and according to people familiar with the investigation, a legal deadline is expiring Tuesday. Comey has maintained his innocence, and if a federal grand jury approves the case, it would mark one of the highest profile indictments of a political figure. I'm Jim Roop.
A Florida school accused of promoting witchcraft. That's what the Liberty Council said this week in a letter sent to Orange County Public Schools. A Christian nonprofit sent the letter in response to a video series called Witchy Wednesday that first aired at an unidentified public high school 2 weeks ago. According to the letter, the events offer students religious instruction, or so they say, on spells, magic, moon worship, and other witchcraft rituals. Liberty Council warning the district the instruction must be voluntary and it's illegal to deny Christian students a similar chance to share their beliefs. Now, there was an update today. As a result of Liberty Council's demand, the Orange County Public Schools yesterday directing West Orange High School to cease its weekly Witchy Wednesday video series that aired school-wide. The series, by the way, was aired during midweek morning announcements and produced by students. In Colorado Springs, District 49 board members voting last night to restrict student access to restrooms and locker rooms based on biological sex. Board President Jamalyn D. Avola sharing concerns about the prospect of a biological male sharing a restroom with girls.
It's important that we have sex-segregated bathrooms so that our girls have private spaces without having someone who is biologically a man in their bathroom.
The resolution passing 3-2 and applies to multi-user bathrooms, locker rooms, showers, and similar facilities. It covers students, staff, and visitors during school hours, extracurriculars, and school-sponsored events. Schools will still provide single-user facilities, they say, for those who need them. And as the race for New York City mayor heats up, one candidate is accusing another of offering bribes. Republican Curtis Sliwa making the claim that Andrew Cuomo's campaign is offering him money to drop out of the race.
That's the way they talk. Come on, Curtis. Everybody has a price. Curtis Sliwa doesn't have a price.
Cuomo's team denying the accusation, calling Sliwa a liar. Most polls have shown Cuomo running second and Sliwa running third, behind the frontrunner Zohran Mamdani. And the family of a man killed in a mid-air collision earlier this year near Washington, D.C. is suing the airlines and the federal government. Attorney for the family, Bob Clifford, says they're seeking accountability.
The crash of American Eagle 5342 was predictable, it was preventable, and caused the needless loss of 67 lives.
The American Airlines flight colliding with an Army Black Hawk helicopter over the Potomac, killing 67 people back in January. Rachel Crafton's husband, Casey, on the passenger plane, and she has filed a wrongful death and negligence lawsuit. The attorney accusing American Airlines and regional jet operator PSA Airlines. It states the airline should have known the flight was heading into one of the busiest airspaces in the U.S. and should have been aware of the risks. And Matt Madison tells us about 500,000 products sold and distributed by Amazon are now being recalled.
According to the Consumer Product Safety Commission, items affected by the recall include power banks, children's helmets, dressers, portable fans, crib mobiles, and baby loungers. Safety concerns range from fire hazards to risks of suffocation and injury. Customers are eligible for refunds, but specific instructions for receiving a refund varies by product, so purchasers are encouraged to contact sellers directly. I'm Matt Mattinson.
And a Missouri woman attempting to auction off Elvis's Graceland estate being sentenced to nearly 5 years in federal prison. 54-year-old Lisa Finley pleading guilty earlier this year to one count of mail fraud, receiving a 57-month sentence along with 3 years of supervised release. Authorities say she forged the signatures of Elvis's late daughter, Lisa Marie Presley, and a Florida notary to falsely claim that Presley had defaulted on nearly a $4 million loan using Graceland as collateral. As part of her plea agreement, prosecutors dropped a separate charge of aggravated identity theft. It is a Thursday morning. We appreciate your listenership here at EWTN. This is the second hour, EWTN's Radio Extra. More on the language that needs to be toned down, especially now in light of what happened some 2 weeks ago. We'll discuss in our next 2 cents coming up in about 2 minutes. Stay tuned. 16 minutes past the hour. Hope your Thursday is going well. This is our 2 cents segment on a Thursday morning, September 25th, 2025. You know, Charlie Kirk was shot 2 weeks ago yesterday, shot and killed on a college campus in Utah. And we know now, seeing the investigation and things coming out during the investigation, we know now that part of the reason that the gunman Tyler Robinson, who was behind bars waiting trial, said actually to his parents and also to friends and also to his boyfriend/partner that he had the opportunity to take Charlie out and he was going to do it because Charlie spread hate. A lot of the information out there, if you see what people have said about Charlie Kirk, is absolutely not true. This was a man who offered those with whom he disagreed a platform. That's what he did every single time he went out on a college campus or to any speaking event. He offered those people who were pro-abortion, pro so-called same-sex marriage, pro-trans agenda, all of that. He gave them an opportunity, pro-immigration. He gave them an opportunity to ask questions and to defend their positions over and over and over again. Again, that's what he did. And yet, how did the media, especially the leftist media, describe him? Maybe even if they're not all that sensational in their news copy, they are calling him still a right-wing activist, conservative activist, but they don't mention that he was a debater, a professional debater that offered people with whom he disagreed a regular platform. Why can't they put that description in their writings, on their stories, as they continue to follow the fallout of the Charlie Kirk murder? Because I do believe the failure of the media, part of the reason we're seeing so much violence, the failure of the media to actively and accurately describe reality is a big part of the problem. Not the only problem, but it's a big part of the problem. And they allow their favorite leftist politicians to spew, even again, just about 2 weeks after this horrible, horrible murder, this assassination on a college campus of a 31-year-old father and husband. They allow the language to be spewed repeatedly, and they play the sound bites over and over again of the leftist politicians whom they support. Just recently, in the last couple of days, you've had Gavin Newsom and also Tim Walz, Newsom the governor of California, Walz the governor of Minnesota, using the phrase Gestapo over and over and over again. And if you look at their comments, they're the same. They're using the same phraseology. It's just as if, and I believe this is true, they all have these statements that they need to get out there. Okay, this is our angle right now. This is our narrative. We have to get that out there. And those words have been used quite frequently in the last couple of weeks. And that what happens this week with the shooting at the ICE facility in Dallas. Here is Vice President Vance yesterday speaking at an event and talking about this very thing and how it has to stop. Take a listen.
Just yesterday, NBC News, maybe the worst of all the fake news, and I'm sure we have an NBC reporter out there. It's a tough competition, my friends, to be clear. But maybe the worst, I said maybe the worst, is NBC News. And they said that immigration enforcement, you know what they said? That immigration enforcement had detained a 5-year-old autistic girl in order to get to that girl's father. Turned out that story was a complete fabrication. It was a complete dishonest lie. No. But when you go around and lie about our law enforcement and you tell them that they're mistreating 5-year-old girls, what do you think is going to happen? When Democratic politicians incur doxing, when they encourage us to unmask ICE enforcement officers, what do you think is going to happen? When the mayor of Los Angeles encourages violent protesters to get in the face of our law enforcement, what do you think is going to happen? What's going to happen is political violence, and political violence has gotten out of control in this country. We got to stop it. We got to condemn it. And that starts, unfortunately, at the very top of the Democratic Party. If you want to stop political violence, stop attacking our law enforcement as the Gestapo. If you want to stop political violence, stop telling your supporters that everybody who disagrees with you is a Nazi. If you want to stop political violence, look in the mirror. That's the way that we stop political violence in this country, and we've got to do it. And while we're all mourning and rooting for and praying for everybody who was injured at that ICE facility, and as far as we know, it looks like some of the detainees, in other words, some of the potential illegal aliens, were some of those who were affected. Look, just because we don't support illegal aliens, we don't want them to be executed by violent assassins engaged in political violence either. So we're praying both for our ICE agents, but also for everybody who's affected by this terrible attack. But that was an ICE facility. And as these guys behind me know, and a few of our police officers know, police officers writ large face too many threats of violence all across the United States of America. And we know.
Vice President J.D. Vance speaking yesterday in Concord, North Carolina, talking about the rhetoric surrounding the shootings that are occurring. And also speaking yesterday was Senator Ted Cruz of Texas, saying, again, we have to stop, we all have to look in the mirror, and we have to make sure we are using appropriate language and not rhetoric that is going to inflame even more violence. Take a listen.
This needs to stop. Violence is wrong. Politically motivated violence is wrong. It was 2 weeks ago today that we saw a political assassination in Utah that tore the heart out of much of this country. This is the third shooting in Texas directed at ICE or CBP. This must stop. To every politician who is using rhetoric demonizing ICE and demonizing CBP, stop. To every politician demanding that ICE agents be doxxed and calling for people to go after their families, stop. This has very real consequences. Look, in America, we disagree. That's fine. That's the democratic process. But your political opponents are not Nazis. We need to learn to work together without demonizing each other, without attacking each other. And I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to the brave men and women of law enforcement. I want to say thank you to the brave men and women of ICE and CBP and everyone who puts their lives on the line to keep us safe. The divisive rhetoric tragically has real consequences. I hope that every one of us will pray, number one, for the safety of law enforcement that are risking their lives to keep us safe. Number two, for the health of those who were shot and injured today. We still don't know the full details of who was injured, but for the families also of the victims of this shooting. Violence has no place. It is wrong. And we should come together. If we want to have a debate about immigration policies, we can do so in the halls of Congress without demonizing each other, and especially without demonizing the men and women who every day put on a badge and go risk their lives to keep us safe.
And you know what's so sad about this as well, as I've been saying the last 2 weeks, Charlie Kirk didn't demonize anyone. He strongly disagreed with the people with whom he debated, but he didn't demonize them, he didn't disrespect them, he didn't call them names. And yet he still was assassinated in cold blood on a college campus 2 weeks ago yesterday. And yet here we have the governor of California just hours prior to the shooting appearing on CBS's Late Show, raging against federal agents who have masked up to avoid being doxxed by activists in the Golden State, and calling them, in the clip you should hear, we don't have time to play it, but in that clip, calling them Gestapo. And he did it not once, just not only on that segment of the Late Show, but on several other occasions, including at a press conference. The same for others on the left, using those terms against law enforcement, especially ICE officers. And again, think about the timing of this. This is just over 2 weeks after the shooting of Charlie Kirk, who also was falsely accused of being all kinds of horrible things or a horrible person, none of which was true. We'll be right back. Great to catch up with Father Dwight Longenecker. DwightLongenecker.com is his website, and it's really cool. You go to his website, it says, "Thanks for dropping by. Pull up a chair and let's talk." And that's what we're doing this morning with Father, who's in studio with us. He will this afternoon be taping several shows with our dear friend and host, Jeanette Williams, for Women of Grace, all about the Rosary. Father, it's so nice to talk to you again. Thanks for coming in the studio.
Glad to be here.
And you are going to be talking a lot about the Rosary. October will be, and it's just right around the corner, my goodness, of course, the month of the Rosary. The Holy Father, Pope Leo, has already declared a special day of prayer regarding the Rosary on October 11th. Let's talk a little bit, Father, as a convert to Catholicism. When did you first discover the Rosary? Let's start there.
Yeah, I was a young Anglican priest living over in England, and I was about to go on my retreat to Cor Abbey, which is a Benedictine abbey on the Isle of Wight. And one of my parishioners had come back from the Marian shrine, Walsingham, which is the primary shrine to the Blessed Virgin in England, and she brought me a rosary, and she handed it to me. And of course, I was coming from an evangelical background, and I was like, prayers to Mary? No, that's not me. But I took it, and in my studies, I had come across a little phrase by the Anglican writer F.D. Morris, which is, a person is most often right in what he affirms and wrong in what he denies. And that's a wonderful phrase for opening your mind and your heart. A person is most often right in what he affirms and wrong in what he denies. So I took this rosary on my retreat, and I said, why should I be right and a billion Catholics be wrong? So I picked up a little book on how to pray the rosary and began praying the rosary there on that retreat at Our Lady of Kor. The monastery is dedicated to Our Lady, and it began to change my life from the inside out.
How so? How did it change your life?
Well, immediately it led me into a deeper and a more transcendent level of prayer is the best way I can describe it. Somehow or other, by praying the rosary, my prayer life was lifted from the mundane and the ordinary stuff of asking God, ordinary way of just asking God for stuff, and began to go into much deeper meditative, transcendent level of prayer. And I've thought about this over the years, and I think it's because as we meditate with the mysteries of the Rosary, we're taken into the imaginative part of our mind.
Right.
In our society, very often we dismiss the imagination. Oh, that's just your imagination. Because we highly value the verbal and the intellectual aspects of our mind. But the Rosary takes us beyond that, beyond words, if you like, into the deeper, into the depths of the mysteries of our redemption.
So the Rosary, I always think of it as a deep and extended Lectio Divina. I mean, it doesn't take long to pray the Rosary. It's about 20 minutes usually if you're doing it, decently and not rushing through it, maybe 20, 25 minutes. But when you're meditating on the mysteries and you're thinking about, as you're saying, the prayers of Hail Mary, the Our Father, the Glory Be, you can really, as you said, Father, imagine yourself in those different scenes within the mysteries.
Yes, and one of the great things about it, from my point of view, is that in some of the Eastern religions where they emphasize meditation, there are all these kind of esoteric techniques of meditation and special ways. You have to go to a guru to learn how to meditate, and it's a kind of a very lofty and exclusive thing. But the Rosary, of course, is just as simple as can be, and it's something which can be prayed by children, old people, educated people, uneducated people. It's universal, it's simple, and it's human.
Tell us about, there's a special event going on in your area, a special project, formation of a Rosary College?
Yeah, my parish is dedicated to Our Lady of the Rosary in Greenville, South Carolina, and we've recently expanded our parochial school from K4 to grade 8 and added grades 9 to 12. And then we began to think, well, how can our kids, very often from large Catholic families, how can they afford to go to college? So we got together with some folks and founded Rosary College, which is a 2-year Catholic junior college. And our credits are being recognized by some of the leading Catholic colleges in the country. So our kids can very economically stay at home for those first 2 years of college, complete those credits with Rosary College. A lot of it is online, so they can do it while they're working. They can do it in their free time. And then transfer over to Steubenville, Ave Maria, Christendom, Benedictine College in Kansas, and these other 4-year colleges to complete their degree. So it saves our big families a lot of money. It also keeps the kids at home, keeps them local, and also gives them a good Catholic grounding in those first very crucial 2 years of college, where a lot of kids go off to college and they lose their faith, or they have their faith challenged in negative ways. So we're there to help them, support them in those first 2 years.
Why name it after the Rosary? How did that come about?
Well, our parish is Our Lady of the Rosary College. Our Lady of the Rosary Parish. And it seemed a natural way to actually solidify the Catholic identity without necessarily using the word Catholic in our name, because, the word Catholic is controlled by the bishops and controlled by the church, quite rightly. And we wanted to give a strong Catholic identity to the college without necessarily saying that it having Catholic in the name. So Rosary, calling it Rosary College helps to do that.
In terms of the rosary itself, I know you're a convert. Do you think, though, I mean, you're well learned in the faith and have studied a great deal of history. And growing up Catholic, I'm in my mid-60s, and the rosary wasn't a very big deal at all. My mother said it, and my grandmother said it's still very popular in Italian culture and always was. But generally, overall in the Catholic Church, even in the seminaries, they poo-pooed the rosary. They got away from it. And do you think it's making a comeback in terms of what you've seen, Father?
Yeah, I personally think it is, and I deal with an awful lot of evangelicals and Anglicans who knock on my door asking questions about the Catholic faith. And of course, one of the things they're always concerned about, one of their big objections, are the devotions to Mary and the dogmas about the Blessed Virgin Mary. And what I always advise them is, by all means, study the teachings of the Catholic Church, study the dogmas of the Catholic Church regarding the Blessed Mother, but also, if you want these truths to make the long journey from the head to the heart, pray the Rosary, because as you pray the Rosary, you will begin to understand these things in a much deeper way, in a much simpler way, which will help you over your intellectual objections also.
What were some of your maybe misconceptions or objections to the Rosary before you started praying it on a regular basis?
Well, of course, we're told in extreme fundamentalist evangelicalism that Catholics not only pray to Mary, but they worship Mary. And Mary is this huge sort of obstacle to them. And I always say, well, if you go into a Catholic church for worship, Mary is not actually the center of our worship. The Lord Jesus Christ and his redemptive work on the cross is the central act of worship. It's called the Mass. And when you go into a Catholic church, yes, there will be an image of the Blessed Virgin Mary, but she will always be off in the side, into a side chapel or in a side position, auxiliary position to the gospel, not as the main act of Catholic worship or devotion. Although I must admit, if you go into a Catholic cathedral, when Mass is not happening, you may see people kneeling before the statue of the Blessed Virgin Mary reciting the Rosary, and it looks like they're worshiping that idol. No, they're not. And I think even the simplest, most uneducated Catholic, if you were to go and ask that, old Italian lady in an Italian cathedral praying the Rosary in front of the image of the Blessed Mother, are you worshiping that idol? She would definitely say, no, I'm not. That's not what I'm doing at all.
Yeah. And I do think part of it is the onus is on us as Catholics, especially cradle Catholics, because sometimes we couldn't explain. I think it's getting a lot better, but we couldn't explain what the Rosary is or what it means to us. We knew we like to pray the prayer, but we couldn't explain very well from Scripture the fact that we weren't actually worshiping Mary. But I think we're getting a lot better at that. More with our guest, Father Dwight Longenecker. He is in Irondale, Alabama at our EWTN studios to tape several programs this afternoon with Janet Williams. It'll be airing next month. We'll be right back. Appreciate the beautiful ministry of Father Dwight Longenecker, Catholic priest, author, speaker, and convert. He is the author of many, many books, and I finally had a chance to meet him several years ago at his beautiful parish with a dear, dear friend of mine, Mary Dudley. And that was great, Father, to finally meet you in person after interviewing you so many times over the years. That was great. It was a while ago, though. How many years ago was that? Do you remember?
2 or 3 years ago. When both of us...
No, I think it was longer than that. Probably, I think it was longer, maybe 6 or 7. I know time flies, right?
Time flies, and we're both... And I'm getting older. I don't know about you.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I can't do the math. I mean, I just celebrated my 42nd anniversary with my dear husband, Deacon Don, but I don't know how that's possible since I'm only 32, but we'll figure the math out later. Anyway, having a great conversation about all things Christ and all things Catholic, and Father is here, or actually there, I should say, because I'm at a different location, a remote location, but Father is in Irondale at our EWTN headquarters to tape with Janet Williams and her program Women of Grace, and they'll tape 4 shows, and they will be airing in October. They'll be talking about what we discussed earlier, of course, the beautiful Rosary. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about what we're seeing. Father Mitch alluded to this in the first segment of my program this morning, all the spiritual warfare that's going on, and your book, Immortal Combat, addresses this very, very strongly. And this demonization that is going on of so many either individuals, as we saw with Charlie Kirk, or groups of people, as we're seeing with law enforcement. And this really is all a part of what we're seeing in terms of spiritual warfare, is it not, Father?
It does, and the process which happens is very subtle. First of all, we begin to load, we carry resentment in our heart, and then we begin to focus that resentment on a particular person who we feel has wounded us, and before long, we then shift that resentment from one person to a group of people. And once we focus it on a group of people, then the individuals become depersonalized, and it's much easier, therefore, to harm them, to deport them, to send them away, and eventually to kill them, to get rid of them. And it's that process we're seeing happening in our society today, where we don't talk about individual people, we talk about groups of people who are evil. And both sides, both left and right, politically do this. And this causes all the division, because once you get into that sort of negative cycle, you begin also putting your enemies into those groups. And once they're in that demonized group, it's easy to dispose of them, to dismiss them, not listen to them, and just rule them out. And it's easy to say, well, oh yes, the left is doing this to the right, but I'm afraid the right does it to the left as well. And we have to be careful about that and treat people as individuals created in the image of God, and try not to put them into categories, which makes it easier to dismiss them.
I would say that both sides do it. However, as a news person monitoring this every day, I would have to say that of late, especially after the memorial service on Sunday, the language has been coming very, very strongly from the left. Not saying that the right doesn't do it, but I think from the Christian perspective, I thought the showing on Sunday evening at the memorial was very powerful, and Erica Kirk's call for forgiveness, I think, made all of us look in the mirror and say, am I, as you said, what am I doing? How am I treating people? What am I saying? But the last couple of days now, with several leaders on the left calling our law enforcement, specifically ICE, Gestapo, repeatedly using that term, Gestapo, Gestapo, Gestapo. And if you look at the language that led the shooter, Tyler Robinson, who hasn't been convicted yet but is behind bars on charges related to the death of Charlie Kirk, it was that language as well that drew him, he says in his own language, in his own text and whatnot, that drew him to that college campus 2 weeks ago. So what do we do about this?
Yes, and I agree with you. One of the comments that I heard in this whole sort of furore about it all was that the right are more likely to be Christian, and therefore we have this principle of forgiveness, which was articulated by Erica Kirk so powerfully at the memorial service, and the left don't have that. If the left, when I say the left, if the left is characterized by communism, by atheism and so forth, they don't have that tool in their toolbox. They don't have that resource. They don't have that strength. And this is the major difference. While the right might also demonize sometimes and fall into that trap, most of the people on the right should have the Christian conviction and the Christian practice of forgiveness. And that's the major difference. The ones on the left don't do that. And they despise that. And they despise that, actually.
They despise it. And as you know, in your work, and not only as a priest, but as a teacher and a leader, when you don't have God, then other things become your God, such as politics. Right?
Forgiveness is the total surprise of Christianity, because it's a virtue which the world would never have thought of, because the natural inclination, of course, is the inclination to revenge, to blame others, for recrimination, and finally to violence against the enemy, because you don't have any other resources. Forgiveness is the surprise weapon, if you like, of the Christian faith.
And we are called to a higher standard. That's why it was so important to have. And how she got the strength, of course, obviously her relationship with God, to say what she did, that she forgives this man who's accused of killing her husband, gunning down her husband in broad daylight in cold blood so quickly within less than 2 weeks after he was shot. Something I really hope and pray, as I was watching that several hours in a row, my husband and I didn't leave. We watched the whole thing from start to finish, except to maybe grab a glass of water or something, because it was so powerful. My prayer was that those who have fallen away from God, fallen away from the church, will see the beauty of Christianity and of forgiveness. This is how we're supposed to be.
And when you think about it, forgiveness, the only other option to forgiveness is revenge. The only other option, if Erica Kirk could not bring herself to forgive, would be to say, go and get that guy and I want him hung high. Okay? Go and get that guy. I want to see him dead. That's the only option to forgiveness, if you really are frank about it.
So in your book, Immortal Combat, given, I know it came out a while ago, but it's still so timely. I mean, a totally evergreen book. What would you suggest to people, especially as we go into October, the month of the Rosary, a beautiful month, but also the culture just goes off the charts. I was talking to Anthony DiStefano yesterday. He has a beautiful new book out about the truth of All Hallows Eve and where it came from, and the vigil, of course, of All Saints Day. But we've lost that. And unfortunately, I think we've lost it in the Catholic Church, where a lot of people are really very much embracing the demonic or embracing all these different images they put outside of their homes and not even realizing, maybe by no fault of their own, what they're doing. What can we do going into, we see, right, the arrows of the spiritual warfare going back and forth, as it says in Ephesians 6. It's getting clearer and clearer now. What can we do to not only protect ourselves, but to help others?
I don't think there's any harm in a little bit of dressing up,
right,
and a little bit of spookiness at Halloween. On the other hand,
exactly what I talked about yesterday. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, it is being geared up to actively involve witchcraft more and more.
Right.
And remember, going back to what I said about revenge and resentment, the function of witchcraft is to actually use supernatural powers to curse people. And that means basically to wish supernatural evil on people, to want bad things to happen to them. That's why witchcraft has been condemned in our society and why Christianity has rejected it, because it's the antithesis of forgiveness. Forgiveness wishes blessings on people, even our enemies. Witchcraft wishes curses and bad things to happen to them.
Let me read this story. I shared this in the news. A Florida school is accused of promoting witchcraft. That's what the Liberty Counsel said this week in a letter it sent to Orange County Public Schools. The Christian nonprofit sending the letter in response to a video series called Witchy Wednesday that first aired at an unidentified public high school 2 weeks ago. According to the letter, Witchy Wednesday offers students, and this is done in a video, religious instruction, Father, on spells, magic, moon worship, and other witchcraft rituals. The Liberty Counsel warning the district the instruction must be voluntary and it's illegal to deny Christian students a similar chance to share their beliefs. But listen to that. This is in a public school, and they're putting out these videos every week encouraging them to get involved in witchcraft and giving them examples of how to do it.
G.K. Chesterton said, once a person turns away from the sacraments, or you could say turns away from the Christian church, they will soon turn to witchcraft. And this is the sort of thing we're seeing. 30, 40, 50 years ago, Christian prayers were yanked out of public schools because of separation of church and worship. Now, in its place, we're getting witchcraft instead. So certainly those who are who feel sad about prayer being taken out of public schools should be able to go back and say, hang on, this is a form of worship. This should not be allowed in public schools either.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And actually, that's what happened. There was a positive end, or I think the story is still developing, but because of the letter and because of Liberty Counsel pointing this out to the school district, they stopped it, at least temporarily. So we'll see where this goes. But imagine that. And they actually have videos that go with this, Father. And I clicked on it, but then I turned it off. I said, I don't want to watch it. I don't want to expose myself to it. But they opened the video. I watched like 5 seconds of it. And they said, "Good morning, witches and warriors." That's how they greeted the students with this video.
Right. And I think what happens is people are naive about the actual spiritual realities. They think they're playing around with something here, but it doesn't really do any harm, or it's not really real. But we all know, who've done any work in kind of the spiritual realm with spiritual warfare, the Ouija board is not a game. Witchcraft is not a bit of harmless fun. There are real powers behind these things,
right.
And when you open the door to the devil, don't be surprised if he comes through it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. On a much more positive note, but I'm glad we're talking about this because you've got great resources on your website to have people stand up for the truth and to embrace the faith more deeply. Father Dwight Longenecker's website is dwightlongenecker.com, and if you go to the bookstore, you'll see all of his wonderful books. There's also his podcast, video, his blog, all kinds of great information. You can subscribe and follow him online. Tell us about some of the Christmas hymns I understand you're working on.
Yeah, a couple years ago, I was commissioned by the Benedict XVI Institute in San Francisco. This is something which is started by Archbishop Cordileone.
I love him. He's amazing.
To actually compose the words for a Christmas carol, for a Marian Christmas carol, for their very Marian Advent carol service. So I produced one last year for 2024, and then they asked me to do another one, which actually got my inspirational juices going, and I wrote 2. So this year they'll be premiering 2 of my carols for their very Marian Advent service, which will be, I think it's going out on EWTN actually a little bit later, so pay attention to that. And it's also access to it through the Benedict XVI Institute's website. And the carols I used traditional Christmas carol tunes and wrote new words, and then they also commissioned a contemporary composer to actually arrange them for choral arrangement. So they're being made available free of charge for churches all across the nation, or across the world actually, who want to premiere these new Christmas carols during Advent and Christmas this year.
Now, will we be able to, I know you said they will be aired, it will be aired on EWTN during the holiday season, the Christmas season. Where can we find them, though? Do we go over to the Archdiocese of San Francisco, or where can we find them?
It's under the Benedict XVI Institute. They have a website. You search for Benedict XVI Institute. This is an institute founded by Archbishop Cordileone to help to promote fine liturgy, an increase in good sacred music, and the sacred arts, architecture, art, music, and so forth.
Well, Father, thank you for this time and for joining us. Any the last few words you'd like to share with our listeners? I know, again, we want to remind folks you're taping with Jeanette this afternoon 4 episodes of the beautiful program Women of Grace, all about the Rosary, moving into the Rosary Month, and you've got a lot of projects underway. Anything else you want to share with our listeners before we let you go?
Just echo Pope Leo's call to the Rosary during the month of October. Remember, the feast of October 7th is the feast of Our Lady of the Rosary, which commemorates the Battle of Lepanto and the great victory there. And remember, Our Lady of the Rosary feast replaces Our Lady of Victory. So she's the Our Lady of Victory, Our Lady of Ransom, Our Lady of the Rosary. And to pray your Rosary fervently during October for our nation, for our world, for peace, and for peace in our hearts.
Oh, amen, Father. Thank you. Great to catch up with you. Again, our guest, the last 40 minutes or so, in studio on a Thursday here, the second hour of Catholic Connection on EWTN. Our friend, Father Dwight Longenecker, Catholic priest, author, speaker, and amazing convert. What a story. So check out his great website, dwightlongenecker.com. And don't forget, he will be on with Jeanette next month for several episodes of Women of Grace. They're taping this afternoon. We'll be right back to let you know what's coming up on a Friday morning edition of CC. Vanessa Denhagarmo filling in tomorrow. Stay tuned. Wishing you a beautiful Thursday, September 25th, 2025. Second hour of Catholic Connection wrapping up on a Thursday on EWTN's Radio Extra channel. Appreciate the great work and the ministry of Father Dwight Longenecker. He has a beautiful church down in North Carolina. If you ever get to go down in that area of Greenville, it's just beautiful, Our Lady of the Rosary Parish. He's going to be taping again with Jeanette this afternoon. 4 episodes of Women of Grace airing on October 9th and 10th, so jot that down on your calendar. Also, what you need to do is jot down the program for tomorrow as in Catholic Connection because Doug Keck, our President Emeritus, will be joining Vanessa Denhagarmo to talk about the inside word of upcoming programming. And Doug is always a great conversationalist, and I'm sure he'll have a lot to say about what's happening in our culture, as he did last week with us. And then V is going to have, I know, a great time with this interview because this is right up her alley and my alley because we have a background in media and we're very, very familiar with influence of media. And so she's going to sit down and talk with Brian and Jennifer Kuzma, co-founders of Smart Families United LLC, the importance of protecting our kids from the dangers of smartphones. Now, the cool thing about this is I got this idea when I was at the Catholic Radio Conference a few years ago and talking with some radio station operators who were telling me all about this amazing ministry. And so I gave them my card. I said, look, reach out to me. This is a very important topic about which people need to know more and more. We were just discussing this with Father Dwight in terms of the culture and the influence. So do tune in tomorrow, and God willing, be back with you on a Monday. Ciao, ciao.